There were signs before Tesla crashed 70%. From its all-time high to the recent all-time low, this move, it was down more than 70%. But if we could study into the market a bit closer, we were able to see what happened to this to date. And this is what we will be discussing today. There are three segments in today's discussion. The first part will be there were quite a few early signal before this crashed. And number two, can we apply this strategy to the rest of the market? And the answer is yes. And I'm going to showcase one example how to do that. And number three, how can we hedge into Tesla back then and how about right now? And before we get into the discussion today, please take some time to read into the disclaimer right here. Let's get started on our first part. Our first segment is what were the early signs before it's crashed. Let's go back to look at Tesla. And we could see here that for Tesla, before I cover about these 2 points, I want you to go back to the year 2020 or rather, that what were the characteristic of an uptrend? That we could see that the characteristic were each trough or each low that we could see here. As I move, you could follow that it was a higher low, or each trough, it was a higher low. That's what we see, including these two trough. We could see that the latest trough compared to this, it was a higher low. So once we able to see that, it means that likely the bull is going to continue to move up, and which was pretty true. But coming to between these two reference, which is also each trough. Now we could see that on the 24th of Jan 2022 compared to December 2021, this trough is lower than the previous trough. Comparing to 2020, this was the first time that Tesla had a lower low scenario. Now, once we have observed this lower low scenario in the context of price behavior science study, now I will have to recognize that perhaps this bull market is losing some momentum. And this is what I've observed at a point in time where I suspect that from here, market may range bound, which it did. If you're going to do a box up here, we could see that market literally kind of range bound from this trend. And once it break away from this range, it's going to come down here. Now, maybe I just do a box up here that we could see. That we could see that literally the market breakdown, and it still give us a chance as it retrace up. The market have moved down the rest of the second half of the year, last year, where it complete the 70% down move. And this was what we discussed on the 31st of January 2022. We saw that before that, we discussed about it was a beautiful uptrend line that we could see that it was a higher low, but coming to these 2 points, it was a lower low, and that was our discussion back then. We became pretty suspicious that maybe the bull is losing some momentum. And let's look at our case study back then. And this was a forum that we discussed called the Timing the Market. So every week I will post a case study and I'll ask a few questions and wait for the members to participate, and then I will give them my reply. And my reply back then was this. I say that from a range, depending on the development of the market, the next move is breakout either way. So we recognize that the breakout, it was this manner. And of course, when we look at technical analysis, it's also good to also include the fundamental development as well for Tesla. And it kind of both matches that the technical is showing us that their sign is the market is coming down, and the fundamental reason also give us a lot of clue that Tesla may be having a very challenging year ahead. And that was at the beginning of 2022. So of course, at a point in time, or rather I've exited my long-term hold for Tesla. That was after 24th of January 2022. Whatever I've make a purchase, a long position, I've taken profit. But of course, I'm tempted to go naked short. But for personal reason, usually my preference is not to short securities. It can depress the market And therefore, what I usually prefer to do on the naked short is that I'll prefer to use derivatives because they are made for that specific purpose. And let's look at what happened here. On point number 2, we're going to discuss about can these signals or these studies be applied to other market as well? Yes, we could do that literally. It's the same. I'm going to use the example on Nasdaq indexes. It's the same behavior on the bull market, the characteristic. Now, this is even clearer than Tesla. That in the bull market, each trough, it was a higher low. We could see that very clearly. And maybe what I do is that I'm going to draw an uptrend line here. Yep. And in our previous tutorial, we discussed about the third week of 2022. Basically, I have changed my view from a bull run to a bear market starting the third week of 2022. And then, if you still could remember Tesla, a lower low, and in fact, many of the blue chip company in NYSE have demonstrated this lower low, and I'm mindful about that to exit the long-term hold on the blue chip counters and also establishing some short-term naked short in the derivative market. Let's look at 24th of January 2022, and where was it for Nasdaq? It was here. 24th January. I want to look at the date here. And that was the point where you also give me a very similar reading on the Nasdaq itself. And that is my plan back then was to start doing sell short in the index futures down here. So how to understand the index futures basically is very simple. We have to understand what is the minimum movement. It states that every 0.25 point is $5. That it translates down, it means that 1,000 point, the worth is $20,000. Now, this could be losses if you are on the opposite direction. At the point in time, my plan was to sell short in the Nasdaq. So 1,000 point is $20,000. What we studied hold true, and you have developed to a lower low and did a retracement. And 15,000 if you sell short a 1,000 point movement, and that's $20,000. And I know that this contract is pretty heavy it may be heavy for some of us, but you can always consider the other contract, the little sister or brothers of Nasdaq, which is called a micro E-mini Nasdaq. The contract size is 1/10 smaller from what we've discussed here. Do follow me on my next quarterly live webinar. We will study and discuss into the current markets. You can find the sign up link below. Also, if you enjoy researching the markets and its opportunities with some help from a platform like mine, I have included the discount link as well. Thank you for staying true, and you have many great trading weeks ahead.